Okay, let me start off with the disclaimer for right off the bat, okay? Because I make these videos and people think that I hate the school or I hate the school board or I hate people on it. I don't hate anyone. All right? I understand that the school board does a very tough job. They have things that they believe, I have things that I believe, and that's the way it is, okay? We have a disagreement on certain things, way that things get done, and that's how why we have elections. Honestly, that's why we have elections. So I'm not going after individual people, but I'm going after right now, I'm going to go after an idea that was discussed during a recent West Hempstead Echo interview, which you should watch the entire interview or at least the first 15 minutes, because I think that some of the things that were said in this interview are not only the most ridiculous things I've heard in this process, in the school board process, I think it may be some of the most ridiculous stuff I've ever heard regarding a democratic election ever. Because it literally makes it sound like they just don't care about what people came out to vote for. So I trimmed a 30-second clip, which is indicative of the first 15 minutes of this interview, really. And just take a listen because you need to see this.
1,300 people came out and voted no for the budget. 201 more people than voted yes for the budget. And we've discussed this now. This is our second year in a row coming here and having these conversations. And a lot is about complacency. We can't take 1,300 as the sole representative of the 13 plus thousand people that live in West Hempstead and that have the ability to vote. We have to remember the fact that even though they didn't come out and vote, that's not a no vote. It's a, I didn't think I had to. I didn't think it would fail. I didn't know I had to. I didn't know I could.
Okay. That is one of the most insane statements I've ever heard. And there's a lot of stuff that goes along this line. So the question was, why didn't you cut anything from the budget? And the answer basically was because people told me, and she talks about this more, the assistant superintendent talks about this more later, saying how at the meetings, people said, we voted yes. So 2,500, 2,600 people showed up to vote, and they voted no on the budget. And 50 people showed up to a meeting and said, we like the budget. So they said, oh, we're going to go with the 50 people that showed up to a meeting as opposed to the 2,600 people that showed up to a vote. Okay? And then there's the logic of, oh, well, 1,300 people showed up and voted no, so we can't go with their suggestion to trim the budget, cut the budget, because not enough people showed up. But if 1,300 people showed up and voted yes and no lost, then would we do a revote? Wait a second. Hold on. So we're having another vote next week. So if the budget passes by less than 13,000 total votes, if the voter turnout is small enough, then the budget shouldn't pass, right? We should have another vote, shouldn't we? But if it fails, shouldn't we have another vote? Like, this logic makes no sense. We have elections. Voter turnout is actually a part of an election. If people don't want to come out to vote, it's not because they agree with you. What if they didn't want to come out to vote because they agree with me? I don't understand. So they're like, oh, well, I know that it's going to fail, so, I don't need to come out to vote. And that even goes more for a revote, because I'm trying to get the word out that you didn't change the budget at all. You're not trying to say that at all. I see the signs that are going around. It just says vote yes. There's no details on what's going on. They just have signs that say, we do a great job. There's no details. We do great. Vote yes. Later in this video, and I'm going to try to share more clips because I think this is some stuff that was said in this interview is actually kind of insane. Like, the assistant superintendent said, by every objective metric, we're doing great. Really? By every objective metric, you're doing great? So why are people annoyed? Why don't you have unanimous consent? Like, you couldn't pass a budget this year, you couldn't pass a budget last year. Is that just because I'm a loud person? I don't think that people are voting no by the droves because I'm a loud person. And I think that we should vote no on this. Okay? The reason I'm voting no on this is because for the past 10 years and for the next 10 years, I'm worried about the taxes. I'm worried about this. I looked up all the stats. West Hempstead residents have paid thousands more in the past 5 years than they would have done if the baseline was set 5 years ago in 2018. Thousands more than they would have paid. This is not about 43 cents a day. This is about a plummeting enrollment. This is about the idea that the budget keeps rising despite a plummeting enrollment. This is about full-time employees keep rising despite plummeting enrollment. I mean, yes, you did have 2.6, as you say. I don't know how you lose 0.6 of a person. 2.6 less staff this year. But you've been seeing this going on for the past 7-8 years. Like, now you're starting to wake up to, because people are starting to talk. What if we never talked? What if we never said anything? You said that you preemptively lowered it from 2.43 raise to a 1.99 raise. But what if nobody ever said anything? You have other people in the community who are worried about this budget process. And unfortunately, you've lost the trust of the community to do it. And that's not a good thing. And I would love to trust you. I really would. I would love to give you the reins of power and say, I know they're going to do a good job and they're going to pass a good budget. And, and that's it. But I can't anymore because of all the things that have been going on for years. The issue is that there is a vote that happened and the people came out and voted. And every school district has similar voter turnout numbers. And they all voted yes and you voted no. And instead of hearing that from the community, you decided to put out the same budget and said, we didn't have a quorum, apparently. That's not how it works. If one person came out to vote and voted yes, you would have been, okay, fine, it's a yes vote. If there was one vote in a community of 13,000 people that voted yes, and it passed the first time, you would have taken that. You wouldn't have called for a revote. It's a joke to think otherwise. This is not to say anything personal about Karen or any other school board members or anyone who works for the school district. Like, I can't reiterate that enough. I really can't. I don't know how many times I can say it. I understand you do a tough job, but you have to do the tough job. We asked you to do the tough job. And just saying it doesn't count because not enough people came out, and I spoke to a few people on the street and they agree with me. I'm sorry, that's not democracy. That really isn't. That's not how it works. We had to vote. The understanding with the community, if the budget fails the first time, is, okay, we're going to do it again with some cuts. But you decided to keep going because you said not enough people showed up. And so you decided to take a lot of more money into the revote, and you see signs all over the community, and you decided to really push it, and people getting text messages, people getting phone calls, and you're putting a lot more effort into the revote than you did into the vote, hoping to turn people out, to scare people to your side. That's not how it should work, okay? You may be in the within the letter of the law. It's definitely not the spirit of the law of how this is supposed to go. So I hope everyone shows up to vote on June 20th. I really do. And I'm going to be voting no. I really think everyone should be voting no, not just because of the last 5 years or the next 5 years, but because I think it's a little ridiculous to be telling a community that their first vote doesn't count because not enough of people that I agree with me showed up. That's ridiculous. Why do we even have elections if they could be done this way? Please come out and vote June 20th. Thank you very much. Have a good night.